This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we are on day 2 with EC2 compute. Okay, so with regards to compute, we have a lot of different services that are being offered.
Done,
Yeah.
not audible for me.
How about for others? Is it okay?
I couldn't hear anything.
Yes,
Yes,
we
it's
can
okay.
hear.
We can. Yes, sir.
It is okay for me.
Okay, I'll ask Sendil to rejoin. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I'll ask Sendil to rejoin and let's start. Okay, so we were
Then
discussing on.
I just have one query.
Yeah.
We cannot connect Bluetooth speaker. It's not possible in this app. I'm trying to connect. I am unable to hear anything actually. I paired my Bluetooth speaker,
Okay.
but and I'm not hearing anything after that. It's paired, but I'm not hearing anything. Does this app support or it will not support? It won't support.
Yeah, you can check the audio settings. Okay, go to the settings of the app and try to see if you have selected the Bluetooth output for your speakers. You are connected
Okay.
using desktop application or web app of GoToMeeting.
Go to app. I installed the app
Okay.
in my laptop
Yeah,
and I
it
have.
should support. It should support. You can just check the default settings in your control panel for your OS as well as on the application. Just check if you have enabled the Bluetooth. Okay. Yep.
Okay, fine. No issues. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure. So let's start. Okay, so with regards to Elastic Compute Cloud or Elastic Cloud Compute, it is mainly for creating virtual servers or virtual machines in AWS platform, right? And we talked about the infrastructure as a service during day 1, where we talked about who manages what, and everyone is clear about that, right? And we also talked about a few of the steps that are involved in creating a virtual machine in AWS. We call it as instance. Let's start with getting a VM created, and in parallel we'll also refresh what we discussed yesterday. Okay, so when you want to go and launch an instance, you need to first select the correct region where you need to launch the instance. And during day 2, we discussed on how to check the latency, where exactly your business is present, and we have to choose the region accordingly to create the instances in that particular region, right? So you can just remove all the filters and you can start to launch an instance after verifying whether you have selected the correct region on the top. And we were discussing on these different screens or these different steps yesterday, right? We talked about the AMI. AMI is the image that we have for creating the subsequent servers. The image ideally should have all the latest update, latest patches. This is mainly to avoid any kind of miss in the patches or the security fix. So it should ideally be the latest. Okay, so there is a lot of practice that is being followed in image management. Generally, we call it as gold AMI or gold image in different organization. So based on the industry requirement, we'll go and create the image or template that should ideally contain all the necessary security settings and the configuration. Sometimes they might also load some of the standard tools and services. Okay, so here let's start with the default image, and later we'll also see today like how to create an image, how to move that image from one location to another location, and so on. Okay, so let's start with selecting the first one, and we can also see how to deploy other operating systems like Ubuntu, Windows, and so on later today. Okay, we'll start with the default operating system, Amazon Linux version 2. And here, if I have to select a particular instance family, for example, I need to create a small web server for my production application. Okay, so which family are suitable for that? Can you help me with understanding like which families might be suitable for a small web server? Is it okay to go with general purpose or compute optimized or memory optimized? What might be suitable for a small web server?
General purpose, it's fine.
General.
Yeah, general purpose or even compute optimized is fine for that matter, right? It's a web server. So if, for example, if I want to create a VM for my high performance database server, what should be the ideal choice?
Or
Since it's
version
IO
of
sensitive,
memory
lot of
optimized.
yeah.
Yeah, memory optimized, or maybe if it is
IO
too sensitive.
optimized.
Yeah, IO optimized is actually on the what you call, yeah, even you can choose IO optimized, but it all depends on the business owner requirement, right? If they are really looking at the IOs and if they are looking at the memory consumption, so based on that you can choose based on the different options. So yesterday we were discussing on how to choose the different instance type based on the different server role. We were discussing on which one to choose from, right? And here, just for our learning purpose, we'll go with T2 micro, which comes under the category of general purpose, right? Let's go and move on to the next screen. Here under the configure screen, we talked about some of the options. Today we will be discussing on the advanced settings here. I'll explain about that later. I mean, maybe after 5-10 minutes. So now we'll go with the default settings here. If you want to create multiple servers, you can go and increase the number of instances. So I mean, I'm not making any changes here. Let me go and look at the storage screen. Ideally, we should have an operating system disk, and if in case we need to have some application data or additional data volume, you can go and add new volumes. And based on our discussion yesterday, we have a lot of different options to choose from. We have general purpose, we have provisioned IOPS, we have got throughput optimized, cold storage, and magnetic. So based on our workload category, we will go and choose that. See, as a cloud ops engineer, as a cloud build engineer, you will be getting all the details in a template. So they will be telling you you have to go and choose m5.extra large, and you have to give operating system size of 30 GB and data volume size of 20 GB. So as a cloud build engineer, you should be at least having the experience of creating the instance. You might not be going and solutioning it, but the solution might come from the senior people like the solution architect. Maybe some people in this call also belong to that particular solutioning category. So if you're a solution architect, you need to kind of provide the design on what exactly they need to choose in terms of the elastic block store volume and in terms of the instance type, what purchasing option they should choose. So you will be providing the information in a template so that the build engineer will go and choose it one by one. And if it is a very large organization, in a long run, they will go and automate it either using the CloudFormation template or using a Terraform template. So for large to very large organization, they will not do it manually. But for a startup or a small to mid-size organization, you might also have to go and do it in the graphical screen manually. Okay, it depends on organization size and the practice and the level of expertise they have at the moment. Initially, to start with, it will be all manual, and gradually they will move towards template, and they might go towards using some of the DevOps tools at a later stage. Okay, but in order to get inside that, you need to understand the different options and configurations that are available in creating the EC2 instances. Okay, so that is very much important. Without understanding it, you cannot go and do automation, or you cannot go and do any kind of a templatized deployment. Okay, so let's go and click next. And here, as we discussed yesterday, tagging is very important, and it helps you with a lot of standardization in terms of what you call governance, categorization, identification, administration. So it helps you to identify the instances in a better way, in a detailed way. You can go and give some names here. For example, we can say AWS with Stan. You can just go and say this is a web application server 1. And you can also have some role and others mentioned here. Role is going to be web. And similarly, I'll have something for my system. I'll say this will be belonging to environment, production. Okay, and I can remove the tags for my volumes or network interface. Ideally, it will go and tag the compute, storage, and the network all three together. Okay, if you want to just have tags only for your instances, you can also remove uncheck these buttons here. And here is where we go and allow the traffic for specific requirement. In general case, since we are creating it for web server, so I'll just name it as web security group 01. And if it is a web server, generally we'll have to allow traffic not just for SSH. We should also allow traffic for HTTP or HTTPS if it is secured. Okay, you can go and allow that. And ideally, you should not open the traffic for the entire internet, unless it is intended to be open to the general public. You have to go and limit the traffic to some specific IP address or to some specific IP range. You have to give some specific range here. Okay, for now I'm just allowing internet traffic just for the first time. After that we can go and see how we can fine tune this. Okay, so let me go and review and launch. So these are the different steps that are involved. Ideally, like if you're a cloud build engineer, you need to kind of follow the steps or follow the instructions given by the design team. If you are a design engineer, you need to kind of help the team understand which option to choose from based on the business requirement, based on the application requirement. One side you have to go and solution it as a senior person. As a junior person, you need to understand which option to choose and what are the specific options we are choosing. At least if you have a clear understanding on what you are selecting on what basis, gradually you can also become a professional in AWS at a later time. Okay, so let me go and verify the summary here. You can just check whether I have selected the right image, right instance type, whether I have the correct security group, and all those things can be verified here. And you can go and launch the instance. Okay, when you go and launch the instance, you have to go and create a key pair. So key pair is a kind of credential where it can be used for authenticating your system. So yesterday we did not see that. We are just going to discuss that today. Okay, instead of summary, I'll say this as a key pair. Okay, the name key pair comes from the combination of keys that we are going to have. We have two different keys here. One is the public key and the other one is the private key. Okay, public key will be stored in the AWS platform side, and the private key will be stored in the customer side, the client side, whether it is a gem server or whether it is your client machine. So the private key will have to be available on your client side. Some people will store it in gem server, some people will store it in their local machine, but it is very important that you keep it very safe. Okay, and it's going to be very tough to retrieve it. You have to go and generate a new key pair, and everyone should be getting the new key pair after you generate it. So it's always good to keep it in a safer location. You can make use of key management service or some kind of key tracker or key locker to store this key in a kind of protected way. Okay, it's very much equivalent to your login credential, like your username and password. Especially for your what you call Linux, you have to kind of keep it very safe for a long run. But for Windows, after the first time, you might start using the username and password, but still you have to keep it safe for all the instances. Okay, so key pair, it's yeah. So yeah, in general, like if it is a proper large scale organization, financial or banking industry, they will have a key vault or a key locker or a kind of it's like they can either store it within AWS key vault or key management service, or they can also use their gem server to store it. So it depends on case to case. Some organization they keep it in the gem server itself. Some organization they properly keep it in a key vault. Okay, so now the selected key pair will be added to the set of keys authorized for this instance. So without this key, you will not be able to unlock this instance, or you cannot connect to this instance. Okay, so in general, you'll go and create a new key pair. Okay, and I'll just go and give it a name. I will say March 2022. And this is for North Virginia location. So you have to create a key pair for each and every region. So the key pair is only valid for that specific region. Okay, so key pair is valid for a specific region. Okay, so you have to go and create a key pair specifically for a region. And within this key pair, we have two keys. One is the public key and the other one is the private key. Okay, the public key will be stored in AWS platform, and the private key will be stored in the customer side. Okay, so you store the private key, AWS maintains the public key. That is what they have mentioned here. That's why they call it as key pair. There are two keys involved. Okay, I'll download the customer side of the key. In general, the key that we download comes with private key file or the .pem format, private email exchange file. So generally the format of the file is PEM. Okay, so Did not copy it. Okay. Okay. Let me go and download the key. Once after I download, the launch instance option will be enabled. You can go and launch the instance. Okay, let's give it a minute. It takes at least 2 or 3 minutes to launch the new instance. Meanwhile, let me quickly check something here. Okay, any questions on any of the topics that we have been discussing on the EC2 instance, starting from the beginning yesterday?
Stan, this
Yeah.
key pair, it is specific for this particular instance, or
Yeah, you can
be
use
used?
the same key for other instances also. So it's valid for a region, and in generally, like you go and use it for taking SSH to the instance. It's mainly for connecting to the system. Okay, so let me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Just 1 second. So let's go and check that. So you can go and view the launch. You can look at the launch activity log or launch log. So you can see that it has first created the security group, and then it has added the inbound rule necessary, and it is initiating the launch. So the very first thing, it will go and create the security group for the instance. Okay, so security group we discussed yesterday, right? It is the instance level firewall. So it is a virtual machine level firewall. Okay, the very first thing it will go and create is the security group, and after the instance is deployed, it will go and attach it to that particular instance. Okay, let's wait for that to happen. Okay, if I can go and view the instance. So currently it is running. So it takes a couple of minutes to kind of refresh. And you can also go and check the key pair details here, whether what are the different key pairs that we have created and which ones are usable and active. So here, the one that we created is the March 2022 North Virginia one. You can also see the old keys also here. You can also go and import any key pair that you have created on your own. I can explain that a little later, but as of now, if you want to go and delete the unused one, for example, I don't want to have this old keys actually, and I can just go and delete the old one. Okay, I can just go and type delete, and I can clean up the unwanted keys. This is not going to add up any cost, but still, like, it's good to have a kind of clean listing here. Okay, and also we created one EC2 instance yesterday, and I might have terminated that instance, but I might have missed to clean up the volume. So if you look at here, you can look at the different volume. Okay, it's already terminated. The volume is already terminated. So whatever the name, the tag that we gave, it is getting applied to the volume. It is also getting applied to your network interfaces. So the reason it's getting applied, when I created the instance, I selected the tag to be applied to the network interface, the volume, and the instance. And you can also go and update your tags if in case needed. You can go here and you can go and manage the tag, and you can add additional tag as you want. Okay, so you can manage for specific resources also, like for your network interface, if you want to add some specific tag, or for your volume, if you want to add some additional tag, you can go and add it little later. Ideally, we have a common tag editor tool. We generally handle the tags using the centralized console. So we'll talk about that a little later, but we have a centralized management feature called tags. That is what we generally use. We can also enforce the policies, like yesterday, Valli was asking about a question, right? We can either control it through the organization, or you can use control tower, or you can use AWS config to restrict what kind of tags are essential, what kind of tags that needs to be pushed. So there are more than one ways to control the tagging. We'll talk about the centralized governance a little later. But for now, you have the option to go and edit the tag even after you create the instance. So if you can go to the tag section here, and you can go and click on manage tag, and you can add additional tags as you want. Maximum of 50 tag. You have already added 3, so you have option to add 47 more tag. So tag is a representation, right? It's a kind of custom label that you can assign to all the instances or all the volumes and so on. Okay, we have already captured that, right? Okay, fine. Okay, So
So
now
basically, in
let's
the
go.
organization,
Yeah,
they will give the server name to identify, right?
correct. Yeah. So ideally, like you will have the server name on the tag. That's the first one you'll have to identify the system. Yeah, host name will be there. And if you are talking about Azure, okay, whatever name that you give on the while creating the VM, automatically that host name will get changed within the operating system in Azure platform. They have a script to do that using the default Azure agent. But here you have to go and change the name within the operating system based on other requirement. But you have option to change it as part of the initialization. I'll talk about the bootstrapping shortly. But for now, you can see that the instance is successfully launched and it is up and running. And you can also go and check the status here. There are two status check. Okay, so in general, this is where you go and check whether the virtual machine or the instance is properly running. So here under the status check option, you have two checks. The first check is mainly to check your physical server status, the host status, that is the system reachability test. Okay, it will check the physical server, the host. System always refers to the host here, the system status check. This is the host server, the server hardware, the base server hardware. Okay, and the next one is the instance status check, which is about the virtual machine. If there is any issues with machine getting booted up, if there is any problem that was detected while the instance is booting, it will throw up the error here. Instance is nothing but your virtual machine. That is the guest VM or the guest OS. Okay, this is the host OS or the host VM. Sorry, host, not the VM, host. Okay, so here there is no issues. So system reachability check has passed and instance reachability checks are also passed. You can also create a status check alarm. If in case there is any warning or there is any error, you can also create an alarm to notify you. Okay, you can also create a status check alarm so that you get notified about that. So with regards to monitoring, alerting and notification, we have a separate day session on how to configure it in a better way. But ideally, when you go and create a VM, what kind of monitoring we get, whether we get detailed monitoring or we get only basic monitoring enabled.
Basic monitoring.
Basic.
Basic monitoring, right? Okay, right, that is true. So if you look at here, by default, currently you have got basic monitoring. That basic itself is giving you a lot of information here. So you can check the CPU utilization. It gives you the status check failed. It also gives you how much network in traffic, network out traffic, disk read, disk write, and all those things. But still, this is only basic monitoring. If you click here, the manage detailed monitoring, you have the option to enable detailed monitoring. So detailed monitoring, it's actually going to add up a lot of cost, and also it gives you granular detail, meaning by default you get 5-minute metrics in the dashboard. If you go and enable detailed monitoring, it also gives you much more granular monitoring. Okay, I don't think we, okay, I think under the configure instance we captured that. Okay, so detailed monitoring, so it's additional cost. So if you are going and adding it, it gives you much better visibility, but you have to pay more. Okay, so we'll talk about enabling that little later on what exactly you will get in addition. But for now, we are good to start connecting to this VM. So as of now, under the detail screen, you have got the instance summary. You have got an instance ID. This is a unique ID that you get for your instance. This is the GUID that you get. It's unique for your virtual machine. Okay, whenever you go and create a VM, you get an instance ID created. Okay, so that is a unique ID for your virtual machine. Generally, like if you want to go and verify the patching status or backup status or whatever, you might have to use this instance ID to quickly filter down. Mostly like you might not be able to use the system name or host name for some cases. Mostly the instance ID plays a major role. So this is a unique identifier. This will not change. Okay, this is a static entry. Maybe the name of the VM can be changed, or it's not static, right? It's a dynamic thing. If you want to go and change it, you can change it anytime. But instance ID is assigned by Amazon and it's static entry. Okay, and when you go and create a VM by default, with the default configuration setting, you get two IP addresses. One is for your connecting from your internet facing, and the other one is the private entry, which is for connecting from within the AWS or from your on-premises using VPN. So there are two IP addresses that you get by default when you go and create a VM. Okay, so you get two IP addresses. One is public IP address, which is used for connecting from internet, WAN, okay, internet. And the other IP address is private IP address, which is internal to AWS connection, or you can connect from your on-premises using the VPN. Okay, from the VPN or the gem servers in your environment. Okay, so now let's go and connect to the system using the public IP address. Now I'm in the internet facing location. I'm at my home. I'm going to connect to this VM using the public IP address. So in order to connect to this public IP address, there are, this is a Linux system, right? Linux is generally accessible using SSH. So Windows are generally accessible using RDP. There are other options like Bastion and Terminal Server through which you can connect, but by default for Linux, SSH is the default method, and for Windows, Remote Desktop Protocol RDP is the default method. So let's see how to use Secure Shell to connect to Linux now. So you can either use any SSH client, like you can use third-party PuTTY, or you can use some third-party SSH client tool, or you can use browser-based client also. I'll show you both options now. Browser-based embedded client. Okay, first we'll go and look at the way how to connect from PuTTY. When you want to connect from PuTTY tool, you have to follow 2 steps. Okay, the PuTTY tool, it has its own private key format. Okay, the PuTTY tool uses .ppk. It does not take up the PEM file directly. So when I went ahead and created the key pair, it created a private key with .pem extension. This PEM extension is not generally supported by PuTTY tool. So what we need to do is we need to go and convert the PEM file to be usable by the PuTTY tool. So convert the PEM file to PPK file. In order to convert any kind of certificate extension or the key extension, PuTTY itself provides a tool called PuTTYgen. Okay, PuTTYgen is used for converting the PEM file to PPK file. So you can go and download the PEM PuTTY generation or PuTTYgen or the PuTTY tool from putty.org site. Okay, you can directly download it from the official site, or you can also go and download from third party also, but it is advisable to go and download from the direct site. Go to the PuTTY tool or PuTTY site, and you have multiple different packages here. And if you want to download it for your Windows 64-bit, 32-bit or ARM processor, you can go and download the different MSI installer, Microsoft installer package. If you are downloading it for Unix or Windows, Unix or Linux, you can also download the Unix source archive. Okay, you have a lot of different tools. For now, we need only 2 tools: the PuTTY tool for connecting to the system to act as a client, and the second tool that we need is the PuTTYgen tool. These are the 2 tools now we need. You can click on this link to download it. Once after you download, and just it's a quick straightforward installation, there is nothing to do in terms of setting. Once after you install it, you will get the app on your machine. Okay, PuTTY key generator. So what is the purpose of this PuTTY key generator? It is to convert or generate a key for connecting to the system. Okay, it's a PuTTY key generator. So here, now we are going to use this PuTTY key generator to convert the format. We are not going to create a new key pair. You can also create a new key pair for this, and you can also create it and import it to your AWS console. I'll show you that method little later, but for now, we have got a key pair which is a different format like PEM format, and we need to convert that. In order to convert that, you have to select the second option here, load an existing private key. We have an existing private key which is in .pem format, right? So whenever you go and look at the download location, you might not be able to see that format because the filter is just for PuTTY private key, PPK file. So you have to go and select all files and check for the one which you created today. Okay, March 2022. So I'll go and open this. It will load up the particular key, and it is showing up what is the format here. It says it is an old PEM format, and it is used for connecting to SSH and so on. It gives you some information there. And if you want to protect the private key still more further, you can add additional passphrase, but it is not mandatory. But if you want to add it, you can go and add it. You can say some numbers, or you can give some key phrase in order to protect that exposure of this key. If someone has compromised it or someone has taken it without the passphrase, they will not be able to use that particular PPK file. Okay, so you can protect the PPK file by adding additional passphrase. This is an optional thing. You can ignore this also. Now, once after you have loaded the PEM file, the PEM file is currently loaded here. You can look at the data. Now, the RSA token that we have loaded, it needs to be converted to a new format. In order to do that, you can select the Save Private Key option. Now, it will go and save it in the PPK format, PuTTY Private Key format. Now, I can just go and say the same name. I can just give the same name and remove the extension. Earlier, it was in PEM format, private exchange mail format. That is the native format from Amazon Web Services. Now we are converting it to a format where it is compatible with, or it is usable with the PuTTY tool. Okay, the PuTTY or PuTTY, some people call it as PuTTY and PuTTY. But yeah, anyway, so there will not be any kind of message whether the save or whether the conversion is successful. You can close it. There won't be any message. You can just go and check that whether you are able to see that particular conversion or converted file. Go to downloads. You should be able to see that PPK file. It is there. Okay, now we have done the conversion. So what we have done, we have converted the PEM file to PuTTY private key file. So .ppk stands for PuTTY private key. Okay, so now I can go and use the PuTTY tool. Yeah, go ahead. If there is a question, you can ask it.
Yeah, PM. What about PM?
Private exchange mail.
Exchange mail. Can you write that?
Yeah, I'll have it tracked here. Yes. Okay, fine. So let's go and connect to the system using the SSH client. So it can be PuTTY or it can be any third-party SSH client. Now, in order to connect to that system from my home machine, I need to give the public IP address. Okay, so since I'm on the internet-facing location, I have to copy the public IP address and I have to enter the public IP address here. And under the SSH authentication, I have to go and select the private key for authentication. So in order to get authenticated against this connection, I need to go and attach this PPK file. Okay, I can attach this and I can just say okay. Once it validates the private key, it will go and confirm whether the key that we are using is the right one. And you can say yes. And it will ask us to log in with the default account. By default, the Amazon Linux and some of the Linux systems, the default account is EC2 And if you have got a passphrase created when you converted it, that passphrase will be asked to make sure the person is authorized to use that key. I need to enter 1, 2, 3 or whatever the passphrase that I entered while I converted it. And if the passphrase matches, it will allow us to use that PPK file and get connected to the system. Now I have connected to the server, and if you look at here, it shows the private IP. So there is a NATing that automatically happens when I connect to the public IP. Automatically, the Amazon Web Services will do a NATing to the private IP address. So you can see that I am connected to the private IP address here after I enter the public IP. So the internet facing will be the public IP. Internally, there will be a network address translation from public to private IP. I can see I'm connected to this specific system now. So the default account for some of the Linux flavor is EC2 Okay, Amazon Linux default user account is EC2. Yeah, go ahead.
Stan, it does not ask for a root credential, all those stuff. It just passed within our the key which we have created in the PuTTY session, right?
Correct. It asked for the key and also it asked for the login ID. You can log in with the root account, but root account is not applicable for Amazon Linux. Amazon Linux, they don't give you root privileges. You can switch user to get inside the root privileges. In order to execute something, you get the root credentials or root privileges as a sudo user, but you cannot log in with root account to Amazon Linux by default. But you can become a privileged user by doing a switch user. Switch user is allowed for EC2 user by default. If you go and look at the sudo was file, you can see that this EC2 users are by default there.
Add in the sudo file, right?
Yeah, it's added by default. Yeah, you're right. So the root is allowed to be used through the for running any commands. It is allowed. Okay, especially for the root user. Sorry, for the EC2 user.
But
Okay, so but
in case if
yeah.
I'm not using that the maybe the ppk file as a password, then if I'm going with the login with the default user, then it will ask it will prompt for a password. No,
Okay,
my
so
question is that generally the whenever we hit an RDP or SSH, right, it'll ask for username and password, right? Since it's an additional, I thought it's an additional parameter for an PPM to we are passing in a password for one more kind of an authentication. Since our jump box is compromised, that's why we are doing it. Is my understanding
yeah,
right, or maybe?
ideally the first time creation will be using the EC2 user. The first time connection will be using EC2 user, but moving further or henceforth, you will have to use your own user ID or service account to manage the system. For the first time, the EC2 user will be open with the default password or the empty password, but you have to go and set the password for the EC2 user for further usage. You should not leave it wide open. Ideally, like for the first time use or first time configuration, you can connect it with without any additional security credential or password for the EC2 user. But afterwards, once after you connect to it, you have to connect to your LDAP or Active Directory for centralized credential management, and you have to use your own user ID for further management of that particular system.
Yeah, thanks and perfect.
Yeah, sure. So now we are connected to the system, and the same way you can also, yeah, go ahead.
So first time EC2 user, it is passwordless, right?
Correct. First time you have to use the default account, and the first time you will not be asked for the password. I mean, even for the subsequent login of EC2 user, unless you change the password, you will not be. I mean, it will not be asking the password from you. And you can also check some specific locations where exactly the keys are stored. For example, if you go to the tilde symbol, and if you go and check the SSH profile, you can see that the authorized keys are stored in that particular location. Okay, okay. Let me exit from the root. Okay, so let me go to my profile. Just a second. So it's a hidden folder. Your SSH keys are generally the open SSH public key, right? It's generally gets stored in the server. So when we connect to the system, it was verifying or validating against the key, right? So if I go and check it, okay, I'm currently as a normal user, right? So I'll show you that little later. But for your question, yes, the EC2 user gets connected without any additional password for the first time. But you can also go and check the SSH authorization key within your profile, and you can kind of safeguard it by changing the permission, or you can make some changes to it. Okay, you can also replace it using SSH keygen at a later time, but for now, let's not go and change it, or let's not troubleshoot it for the first time. Later, I'll show you how to troubleshoot or kind of retrieve and modify the key pairs at a later time. But for now, it's a very straightforward creation of instance. You can just go and create an instance. You can generate the key. Only thing that is mandatory for the first time, you need to go and select the correct AMI and the correct instance type. Otherwise, the rest of the thing, or you can create with default settings also. Okay, so let's go and see the other option. If I'm not allowed to use putty, or if I'm not allowed to use any tool, or if I'm not authorized to install tools, I can also use the SSH client that comes along with your browser. Okay, within your browser, you also have the SSH client. I'm not sure how many of you use this secure shell app. This is a secure way of connecting without installing any additional tools. Okay, you can just go and use this secure shell app. Okay, so let me see. I'm in the Chrome browser, right? You can just go and say the Chrome extension and click on this Chrome shell app, or sorry, secure shell app. Under the Chrome web store, you will have a lot of extension. For example, even for managing the SSH, you have a secure shell app. You can launch the application within the browser itself. So here, you can just go and say, I want to connect to that system. So the IP address of the system is what? 54.226 in this one, right? I can enter the username and the password. Okay, so here, here you can just go and say EC2 hyphen user, and you can just give the IP, or you can also just enter it here also, EC2 hyphen user at the rate IP address, the public IP address. And if you have changed the SSH port number, default port number, you can change the port number. Otherwise, you can just go and connect to it. And here again, you have to use the profile, or you have to import the identity, and you can also do it. So there are multiple ways that you can do it. Okay, so currently I have not attached it, but I can just go and say yes to see whether I'm able to reconnect. I have not connected the public key. Okay, so I can upload it and connect to it. But you have a lot of different ways. You can use some third-party SSH client, or you can use the embedded browser option to use it. There is one more option called Bastion option, which we will discuss a little later. So this is how you connect to a Linux system. But if you're creating a EC2 instance with Windows flavor or some other Linux flavor, we will also create a couple of more systems, okay, just to make sure you understand the different options. Okay, let's go and create a Windows VM now. Always create the free tier when you are in a learning phase. Okay, otherwise if you're going and creating the other instance type, or if you're choosing other AMI, you might have to pay for that. Okay, always go and use the free tier one. I'll go and create the free tier eligible Windows 2019. I'll select the operating system here. And for that, maybe T2 micro might be a very small one and slow one, and we are allowed to only choose that for now. Maybe we will go with that. Okay, it should work. And here, when you go and look at the default setting, by default, auto assign public IP address is set to enable, meaning for every default virtual machine, this option is enabled. That's why we are getting a public IP. If you go and disable this option, you will not get the public IP. We'll look at this a little later, but I'm just want to show that. And ideally, you can go and see, if you look at here, yesterday I was telling you, right, that the default size for Windows is 30 GB for the OS, and the default size for Linux is 8 GB. You can go and change it, or you can go and increase it. I'll also show you how to change that. Okay, so I can add some tags if I want to. This is Windows Web Server 1, and I can say this operating system is Windows. I can add as much as I want. Okay, I can just leave that for now. Let me go and okay, I can use the existing security group, but whatever I have created earlier, it was for Linux, right? But I need to create one for Windows. So for Windows, I need to allow remote desktop protocol to access the system. I can say this is a Windows security group 01. And if you are using it for multiple purpose, for example, for connecting to Windows as well as to web port or something, you can also add that additional port. If I want to allow additional traffic like SMTP or LDAP or HTTP, I can just go and allow that additional traffic and review and launch. Okay, so when I launch it for Windows or Linux or any operating system, I can use the same key pair. I can go and choose the existing key pair that I created just now. Right, I can use the same key pair for connecting to both Windows and Linux also. Okay, I can acknowledge. If I want to create a separate key pair for Windows, you can also do that. Okay, so let me log in. So this is what you need to understand. For Windows AMI or for Windows machine, the key pair is needed to retrieve the username and password. Okay, I'll show you that shortly. So in order to retrieve the login credential, the administrator password, you need to have the EC2 key pair again. Without the key pair, you will not be able to generate that. So for Windows machine, the key pair is needed to obtain the password for your administrator. By default, for Windows, you have administrator, right? For the administrator, for retrieving the password for administrator, you have to have the key safely. Windows might take 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, so it takes a little more time compared to Linux. But yeah, let's go and look at the instance. Currently, it is in pending state. Okay, let's wait for the system to come online.
Stan, how industry
Yeah.
people, maybe industry use that? They will use a single key, or maybe they use the same key for everything.
Okay, so if for example, generally we only the support team will have access, right? Generally, they will connect to the jump server, and from the jump server, they will have access to the systems using the default keypad. So there is another. I mean, there are few other methods like using the Bastion method, and there are some putty diversion method. There are few more methods that are there, but for now, let's understand the basic default method, and moving further, I'll show you how to use it in a proper industry practice. Okay, so generally, like we'll have a in between jump server or Bastion server, and we will kind of have some kind of key locker or key vault, and from there we will be retrieving it and connecting to it.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
helps, Chan.
yeah, sure. So now it's running currently. Okay, you can go and check the instance state here. Okay, it is running. Both the instances are running. If it is taking some time, you have to come and verify the status check. And there are different status for your virtual machine. Okay, I can just quickly show you that while the Windows machine takes some time. Okay, I'll just quickly show you a few things about the different instance status, because like you need to understand that, especially from pricing aspect, because you have to. Okay, let me just show you that quickly. Okay, so whenever you go and launch the instance, by default, you can see different status. Okay, it will show pending if it is a Amazon Linux, and sometime it will show you running and stopping, stopped, shutting down, terminated. So there are different states for your virtual machine or for your instance. Okay, and not all of them will incur cost. Some of them will incur, some of them will not. Okay, so when you go and launch a new instance using a Amazon machine image, first it will go into the pending state, and after some time, once all the status checks are done, it will show us running. And when you go and do a hibernate, it will go into the stopping state and get stopped, and it also goes to rebooting mode. So this is the different instance state for your Amazon Web Services EC2 instances. Okay, and if you look at here, when the system is in pending status, it will not be billed. Okay, when the system is in running status, you have to pay for it. Okay, it will be getting billed, or it will be counted for getting billed. When the system is in stopping mode, it will not be billed if it is preparing to stop, or it will be billed only um, when the system is running. And it will be actually billed if the preparation to hibernate is happening. Okay, sometimes in order to get inside the hibernate mode, it might take 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depends on the content that is there in the virtual memory. If the system is currently in getting hibernation mode, if it is stopping, even if it is stopping, if it is preparing for hibernation, then for that 5 minutes or 10 minutes, the bill will be still generated. If it is completely stopped, there won't be any billing. Okay, so instance is completely shut down, and there is no charges for your compute. Okay, I'm not talking about the storage, only for the compute, the CPU and memory and network, there won't be any charges. If it is shutting down, again, the instance is getting terminated. It is not getting hibernated, right? So hibernation is different, termination is different. Termination, the machine is going to get completely terminated. Hibernation, it is going into a sleep mode, right? When it is going into a sleep mode, when it is getting stopping status, you will be charged for that. In shutting down status, there won't be any billing. Okay, similarly, after termination, the VM instance is completely terminated, right? So you don't have to pay for that. But for reserved instances, even you have to pay for it until the term is complete. So you have to talk to Amazon and say that I want to close the reservation for that particular instance, and you can stop the payment for that. Okay, so you have to be careful with the reservation or reserved instances. So these are the different instance state, and this is the billing that you need to understand. If it is stopping state, if it is going into hibernation, then there will be billing. If it is in running state, it will be billed. And for the other cases, other status, it will not be getting billed. Okay. Is it clear?
Stan, one question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're getting public IPs right after launching the
Yeah.
instance. So is there any cost involved for that, or?
Sorry. Yeah, there is a charges when the system is stopped. Definitely, then if you are using Elastic IP, Elastic IP is a permanent IP. But if you are using the default dynamic IP, if the instance is stopped, it will be getting released. Okay, there are two different type of public IP. Okay, I'll be explaining that little later, but since you have asked, I will quickly cover that. Okay, there are two types of public IP address. You can go and if you're not choosing elastic IP address, then the charges are different. By default, you get a dynamic IP. Okay, for dynamic public IP, if the instance is stopped or if the instance is already in stopping status, so you will not be billed for that dynamic public IP because it will be getting released when the instance is not running. Okay, but there are charges. Okay, but it won't be explicitly available. It is part of your instance. Okay, but if you are going and creating a permanent public IP or static public IP, then the charges are separate. Okay, even though you if you are using it, then it will be part of your instance. If you're not using it, then elastic IP will be charged separately. Okay, meaning if the public elastic IP is attached to the instance, it is counted as part of your instance charges. But if the instance is stopped, you have to still pay for the elastic IP even if it is used or not used. Okay, so this is a static public IP which is chargeable irrespective of usage. If even if the instance is stopped. Okay, so if the instance is running, then you have to just pay for the instance running charges, not explicitly for the public IP address, either it is static or dynamic. But even if you have stopped the instance for elastic IP, you have to pay for it. Okay, elastic IP
Thanks so
is the sure. So here you can go and reserve it. Okay, you have the option called elastic IPs. You can go and reserve the IP address for that. For now, whatever you have got, it's a dynamic IP.
But general in public IP, if we reboot the server, the IP will change, right? It is not the same
Correct.
IP will get.
Yeah.
That's the only
Yeah.
drawback,
IP
right?
will correct. IP will change when the instance is not running or when the instance is getting rebooted. So in all such scenarios, this will be getting released. Yes. Okay. So let's go and connect to the Windows instance now. If I go to the status, it is already running, and you can click on connect. When you go and click on connect, it will ask whether you want to connect using session manager. Session manager will be usable when I go and install the agent. I'll show you how to install the agent. And currently, the default practice to connect to the Windows instance is using RDP client, right? That is the traditional method. But there is one more method like your SSH client within the browser. You can use EC2 serial console or session manager. We'll see all the three options. But to start with, this is the general method. You can connect to your Windows server using RDP client, which is Windows proprietary remote desktop protocol, right? You can connect using that default protocol. I can just click on this download remote desktop file. So when I download this, automatically it will add the DNS entry. By default, you will get a EC2 server name and it will have compute-1 if your system is running on the East US 1, and it will have a default DNS name. You can change it later. I'll show you how to use DNS to change it. But for now, in order to get the credential, in order to get the password, it will ask for the PEM file. Okay, so this is the PEM file that we have selected while creating the instance, right? While the system was created, while the system was launched, we have selected this key pair or this particular key. And you have to go and show that you are having that key in order to successfully connect. So now you have to give PEM file only for PuTTY, only for the PuTTY session, you need the PPK. For Windows, you still need the PEM file only. Okay, now since after I connect it, it will show the RSA private key, it will verify, and it will go and decrypt the password. Okay, now the password decryption is successful, and you can see that the first time password is generated. Okay, so now you can just go and have it for your safer side. So you need to have the private key, which is nothing but the PEM file, to decrypt the password. Okay, so now after I decrypt it, I can just go back to the console here. Just cancel it, go to the system, copy the public IP, and I can just go and type MSTSC, or I can just go and type remote desktop on my machine, on my Windows client, and I can connect to that. Either I can say Microsoft Terminal Services Client, MSTSC, or I can just say remote desktop connection. And I can paste in the IP address and click connect. Okay, it will ask for the credential now. It will ask for the username and password. Okay, administrator, and the password that got generated, and we have decrypted it, right? I can just go and copy that and enter it here. Click OK. So now it is connecting to the EC2 Amazon machine. Say yes, and you will be able to log in. Okay, by default, it will have a random host name with EC2 prefix. You can go and change it when you want to change it. Okay, so let's wait for the system to come here.
Stan, one question here. Stan,
Yeah,
nowadays in real time, right? So we are working for the customers. All the customers are giving us their system, right? Virtual desktop. All these things are created like this, right? Or a different way they are created.
Okay, so if you are talking about desktop operating system, they might be using virtual desktop or workspaces. We'll see the workspaces maybe after a few weeks, maybe 7th week or 8th week. We will see how to create a workspace and provision a virtual desktop. So workspaces is different. If you want to have a VDI environment, or if you want to create desktops in the AWS cloud, we have a different one. But whatever the server for your business application, for your utility system, then they use the EC2 platform. So EC2 is the default compute cloud platform, elastic compute cloud platform, where it provides you the virtual servers, okay, not the virtual desktop. If you are referring to virtual desktop, then there is a different solution for that. So this platform is only for providing you server operating system. Yeah, you'll also see that virtual desktop later. Yeah. So this is mainly like, yeah, sure. So elastic compute cloud or elastic cloud compute, some people use it alternatively. So here, what exactly this virtualization, this is the virtualization platform, right? This virtualization platform, it provides you compute capacity. It gives you the option to select how much CPU memory you need, and you go and create it, right? And you can also create a desktop operating system server. Okay, sorry. You can also create a EC2 instance with desktop operating system. But ideally, like if you are looking at VDI infrastructure or virtual desktop, it's better to go with workspaces. It gives you better pricing and better option to customize and so on. Okay, so here, let's see. Okay, let's talk about. Okay, so far we have just discussed about the default stuff, right? How to create a EC2 and how to select the right AMI instance type, purchasing option, how to select the specific EBS volume, and so on. And yesterday, some of you are asking how to modify the volume, or how to add additional volume and all those things, right? I can show you that shortly now. So before that, if I want to kind of do any kind of configuration changes, or if I want to go and add additional roles, and if I want to take image of the system, I can go and do some kind of hardening, or I can go and do some security settings before I take the image or gold image from the system. Okay, so generally you go and create a gold image using the running system, right? You'll go and modify the security settings, you'll go and do hardening steps, and you go and take the image. I'll also show you how to create the image shortly. But before that, okay, let's go and add some space or make some changes. If you go to the volumes, you can see which volumes are attached to which system. So for the AWS web app system, so this 8 GB is there, right? And similarly, if I want to uncheck this, and if I want to check all the different volumes, I can see that there are two different volumes, one for the Windows Server, one for the Amazon Linux. For example, if you want to modify the capacity from 30 GB to 40 GB, or if I want to change it, I can go and look at the options here. I can go and modify the volume, and I have the option to edit it here. I can just go and say 40 GB or additional capacity. It can be, it should be integer, and it can go up to 16 terabytes. Since we have chosen general purpose, you have the option to have only 16 terabyte. If I have the higher one, like provisioned IOPS and all, it gives me option to go and change it to 64 terabyte. For now, I will just go and modify it. I'll increase the size of the volume, and this will only increase it on the EBS level or at the EBS on the AWS platform level. But I have to go and change it within the operating system. Okay, I've just initialized the modification. Okay, the volume is being modified. You have to wait until the information screen is going away. Okay, just wait for a minute. Okay, I can just go and modify the operating system volume size. I can also convert it. I can also change it to provisioned or a different category. But for some cases, you need to go and take some downtime. It is always advisable to do during the non-business hours, not to impact any performance on your application. So it's always better to do it during non-business hours. Okay, just wait for some time. It will change it to the status. It is currently modifying here. You can look at the volume state. Currently, it is in use. It is modifying. So that's the reason I always prefer to do it during non-business hours. Okay, so once after this modification is done, then you need to go and do it within the operating system. You can refresh it. Okay, it is optimizing. So once after the optimizing status is complete, you can go and do it. Go ahead. What is the question?
No, this is for we are increasing for system drive, right? What
Mhm.
about other drives also can
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can
otherwise we can
yeah,
do
right?
it. So I can
We can
go and
view, right?
create more
Oh, okay.
volume. Yeah, I can
Oh,
go and
okay. It will
create.
show you, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I can go and create one additional volume. So generally, I always go and create the latest one, general purpose 3. I can go and create some 10 GB space. Okay, and I can, if I want to have some kind of, the important thing that you need to notice, you have to create it in the same data center as that of the VM. So for that, you need to go and check where exactly my other VM is running. So this Windows web server is currently running on, let me just move this, scroll down, and you can see it is running on data center 1. So US East 1 is the region, and this A denoter is the data center. In US East 1, we have 6 different data centers. So you will see A, B, C, and different options. So if I go and create the volume, you have to create the volume in the same data center as that of your virtual machine, as that of your instance. So there are 6 different data centers in East US region in North Virginia. Okay, so this is the location where you have got the maximum number of data centers, physical data centers. These are all separate physical data centers, availability zones.
I cannot create in other available zone, right? Easy.
You can create, but you cannot
But
attach it. So in order to attach it
oh,
to that
okay.
specific, see, for example,
Virtual
you think
machine.
about this, right? You are creating a volume in data center 2, which is physically a separate data center. Can you
Got it.
attach it? It's not virtually possible, right? I mean, virtually it might be possible. Logically,
Correct.
it might be possible using Metro cluster or some concept, but it's always preferred to do it or create it in the same data center. Ideally, it should be in the same data center.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so yeah, let me go and give some space here, and I can select the data center and create the volume. And once after the volume is created, okay, you can go and attach it. I can say this is Windows Web Server 1, volume 2, or data volume.
This is what I thought of looking at. How do we understand it's a D drive, E drive, all those? That's okay.
Yeah, you can tag it. Okay, even for every resource in AWS, you can keep on tagging. You can add additional 50 tags for everything that you create. Yeah. So now let's look at the optimization state. You always need to look at this. You can refresh it. Okay, successfully. Okay, let me check. It's still going on. Okay, so some people go and modify it. It might corrupt. I mean, I don't want to threaten you, but it's always good to wait for the status to complete the optimization. Okay, so always close the sessions and so on. Okay, so that there is no additional temp files or buffer files, because when you are connected to the system, it takes little longer. Okay, you can close the sessions, and ideally you can just go and change the size during the off business hours. So now I can also go and attach this secondary volume to the same VM. But in order to do that, I'll just wait for the other volume to be optimized. So it is now available to connect to any system. Okay, now we are ready with the secondary volume, but I'll just wait for the system. So you can go and scan it here. See, for example, if you go to the Windows machine, you can go to the disk management. You can go to the disk management here. And currently it should show the additional 10 GB space. So you can see 10 GB is unallocated. You can go and expand it, but don't extend it unless the optimization is done. But here for learning purpose, I can just do it for now. Okay. You can just add the additional 10 GB completely, or if you want to just add only 5 GB for now, and later you can add additional capacity also. But I'll just go and add the complete capacity for now. Okay, and you can do it online. So now the OS drive has been extended from the current 30 GB to 40 GB. And you can also go and attach additional volumes. I can go and select the additional volume here, go to actions, go and attach the volume, and it will ask which instance we are going to attach to. You can go and select the specific instance, whether you are going to attach it to the AWS Amazon Linux VM or the Windows web server VM. I'm going to attach it to the Windows web server VM, and it is clearly stating that only instances in the same availability zone as the selected volumes will be displayed. You will not be even able to choose the VM from other availability zone. That's the reason I told you to create the volume in the same availability zone. Okay, and you can just go and assign some different names for your device to identify. This is mainly for Windows, like you'll have from XVDF to XVDP. Okay, I can just go and attach the volume. So it is for representing your physical volume on the AWS side. It will assign a drive letter. Sorry, it will assign a letter there. So now, once after it is attached, you can see that 10 GB in your disk management console. It will not be online. You have to go and bring it online, and you'll have to go and initialize it first. Then you have to select the partitioning table based on your capacity. If it is less than 32 GB or if it is very small, you can go and choose the master boot record, the default partitioning table style. Or if the capacity is more than 2 terabyte or it's very heavy, you can go for the GUID partition table. Based on the size of the volume, you can choose between MBR and GPT, and you can go and create additional data volume. And you can finish it off. Okay, so now you have you have seen the methods of how to increase the OS volume online and how to attach additional volumes to the running operating system. This was the question yesterday from one of you, right? So is it clear?
Yes.
Okay. So now the same way you can go and attach additional network interfaces, or you can go and make changes to your system. For example, if I want to add additional network interface, currently I've got only one network interface here for my systems. I've got one network interfaces each. Similarly, I can go and create additional NIC card. See, for example, if you want to segregate the traffic for your production, backup, some replication, or some kind of cluster heartbeat, if you want to have additional network interfaces, you can go and create additional network interface. If I want to create for some data NIC, I can just go and say data NIC, and I can select the subnet. It has to be from the same data center again. Okay, it has to be in the same availability zone, and I can just go and customize it. I can go and assign my own private IP address as I need, or else it will automatically go and pick up that. For example, if you want to have a static IP address, I can go and enter the IP address. In order to do that, I have to go and check the range here first. Okay, so we'll talk about the VPC and other things a little later, but for quick understanding, I'll just go and look at the network IP address range, the default IP address range here. So for data center 1, so this is the default IP range that they are using. I can just look at the data center 1. For data center 1, this is the range. And for this range, you can use, let me just go and look at subnet calculator. Okay, so you can use any IP address from 172.31.16.1 up to 31.254. So this any range you can use. For example, if I want to use some specific IP address within that range, like some fancy number or whatever, I can just go and enter that. If I want to use some 100 or whatever, I can use that. Okay, and it should be within that range. You can go and also have a static private IP. Okay, so all the IP address management should have to happen from the AWS EC2 console, not from your within your operating system. Within your operating system, you will have access to do it, but you should not go and change anything within your operating system. Okay, if you want to have fiber channel elastic fabric adapter for enhanced performance, you can also enable it, but for now, let's leave it. And you can also add some prefix or delegation. I'll talk about this during the networking class, but for now, you can just use the existing security group. Also, you had a question yesterday, right? Whether I can use the same security group for my multiple network interface. Yes, you can use that. I can go and select the same network interface here. The same security group, which I have created earlier. And I can just go and create it. Okay. So once after I create the network interface, I can just give it a label. I can say this is for my Windows data NIC 1. And I can go and attach this NIC to my EC2 instance. Go and attach it. Once after you create it, you can go and attach it. Okay, it will give you the drop down. You can go and select the server and attach it. So this is the advantage of AWS. Okay, in Azure, you need to have downtime for almost all the changes. Like if you're planning to attach additional NIC, or if you're planning to do anything on the network interface level, it generally looks for downtime. So there is a small disconnect that happens when you go and open up the network console because of the new additional NIC. Okay, so it will get auto, because this NATing has to happen. Currently, the public IP is connected to that first private IP. Now it will also add the secondary NIC into that. So once after I complete the connection, I can just go to the network console. Okay, there is a small disconnect that happens. It is always recommended to do during the off business hours. So you can see the additional network card has been added. You can just go and look at the status here, and you will be able to see the details. You can see that it has assigned that specific IP address which we entered, 16.100. Okay, so this is the second network. You can add additional network interface card based on your instance type. Okay, you have to verify. For example, the current instance type what we have got T2 micro, right? And let me go and check what is the maximum allowed network card for this particular instance type. Okay, let me scroll down. Let me check the option. Okay, let me move this GoToMeeting screen, scroll down. Here it is T2 micro. I can go and check the number of network interfaces that are supported. T2 micro instance type, AWS. So you have to go and check the documentation. See, this is very, very important. I say that because, see, sometime you might go and create the change request without verifying the details of how much the specific instance will support, or how much number of capacity it will support. See, currently, this particular T2 micro, it will support low, it will provide you low to moderate network performance, but still you don't have the details of how many network card it supports, right? So let me go and check that. Network card, network bandwidth. Okay, let me check that. There should be an option. Okay, T2 micro supported network interfaces, AWS. See, currently it supports maximum network interfaces of 2, I guess. Okay, this is very, very important. I have seen people failing on this aspect. When they go and create the change request, they will go and create it without even checking this. Okay, you have to go and verify how many number of network interfaces are supported for your specific model. So for your T2 micro, right, only 2 network interfaces are supported. And for T2 small, 3. Similarly, for other network interfaces, there are different number of network interfaces that are supported. And again, you can have only how many IP address. You can have only maximum 2 private IP address per interface. That is also something you need to verify, because someone will go and create it and they will try to have a lot of virtual binding for your website. Some people might need 10 different IP address for the server to host different virtual website. Okay, so you have to verify how many IP addresses are supported and all those things. So before you go and create the change request, you have to do some kind of due diligence to verify whether your instance size supports. For example, See, now I have not done that due diligence, just for an example. Okay, I'm just going to create additional network card and I'm planning to attach it again. Okay, AWS, okay, Windows NIC 3. Okay, and I'm just going to create it in the same subnet, and I'm going to auto assign it, and I can select the security group, create the network interface. Now, after the during the change interval or during the time of the change activity, I will go and select it, and I'll go and try to attach it. Now I'll get an error. It will say that you have exceeded the maximum number of network cards that can be attached. See, the interface count 3 exceeds the limit for T2 micro. So this will be a change failure count for your operations team. So whenever you are part of the operations team, you need to verify how much is the maximum for that specific instance. Whether if you are having D series or if you are having some higher series, you might have a lot of support. See, for example, you have 3 network cards in T2 higher version. In some of the version, you have 15 network interface card. There are some instance type that supports many. Okay, so you have to verify that. That's the important message I want to pass on. Is it clear?
Clear, Shan, but can you go
Yeah.
back to the limitation over there, the page?
Okay,
limitation?
sure. Okay.
So when you talk about the private IP address, maybe the IP address was seen for the NIC, right?
Correct. See, you can have more than one IP address for each interface card. See, for example, if I go and select this web server secondary NIC which I created, right? If I go to the manage IP address screen, I can go and add more IP address there. See, for example, currently it has got one private IP, right? I can also add one more private IP here. So this is the maximum that you can have. Only 2 is the maximum for T2 micro. So I can just go.
The one we do in alternate IP in the OS level, right?
Yeah, that is, I mean, that's what, right? In cloud platform, you should not go and do it in within the operating system. That is not, I mean, it's supported, but you should not do it. It's not advisable. It's a best practice to update anything on the AWS EC2 layer only, on the virtualization platform layer only.
Oh,
So
got
this
it.
number, yeah, this number 2, it represents the number of private IP address that each of the network card can have. So if I go and add one more private IP, it will start showing the error now, because it supports only 2. Yeah, so I mean, these and all, like, it comes out of experience, but still, like, you should not fail in your change request, right? If you're failing in a change request, they will ask for a lot of RCA, a lot of things that I mean, instead of getting into the change management board and explaining all these things, it is better to just verify what you are going to do or what you are proposing. That's the important thing, right? If I go and add additional IP here, for example 16.200 or whatever, now it will it might throw the error here itself. Okay, it's saying it cannot have more IP address. It can have only 2. It does not it did not accept it. So it's saying it is failing to add more IP address because the number of private IP address will exceed the limit for that particular instance. Clear
Yeah,
now,
perfect.
Vimal?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Question, what about the allies? If we want to create some allies for the network private IP, is there
Yeah,
any
DNS
limitation for
will
that
discuss that
allies
later.
also?
Yeah, we can have alias entry. We can have specific DNS names at a later time. I'll help you with understanding the DNS management a little later. Yeah, after the network clash, maybe after a week, we'll discuss completely on the DNS, including the alias entry, having a user-friendly name, and so on. Yeah.
No,
So
not
for now,
that one. I understand. I'm asking about that. If you says that IP allies, I'm asking. If we were creating some database and all, we are allying for bond 0:0 something we are creating it in such a way. If that is also kind of the private address inside the host. So is there any limitation for that kind of IP assignment, or that can be done, or that cannot be done in the cloud level?
okay, so let me check it here. So I think you are referring to the network behavior. Once again, let me show you that. So go and look at the manage prefixes. Let me check something. So you can have some prefix and suffix for your system, but as I told you, like, okay, not this. Maybe you are asking about some alias entry on this VM level. Go to networking. Currently, the DNS entry that we have is this one. Okay, if I go and open this address, it is automatically taking me to the internet DNS facing console. Currently, this is the default name, but you can change it. Okay, you can go to the subnet and you can customize the DNS name, suffix, and all those things. So all these things I'll explain during the DNS class. But I'm checking, maybe you are asking something else also. Let me see. I don't see any option for having an alias entry for each of the nick. Okay, let me check. Yeah, I think in Azure platform, you have that facility to create alias for each and every nick, but I don't think here we have it. But I'll double check. But there is a way to do that using the DNS management console, okay, or VPC console. But for now, any questions on what we have discussed so far on how to create an instance, how to connect, how to add additional volume, how to add additional network card, how to go and assign the IP address. So now you can go and check that the instance will have multiple IP addresses here. So let me go and look in from the IP config. So this is the preferred IP, right? 100 is the preferred IP, and you should also see alternate IP somewhere. I mean, even though you have the option to change it here, you should not change it. That's the important thing, okay? So you should not go and change it here. Even though you have the option or privileges to change it, but you should not change it.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, let me cancel it, close it. Okay, any question from anyone so far?
Stan, can you explain that use of that? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Managing IP address, we feel that can we increase the limit or it's not possible?
You have to change the instance type in order to have more configuration. For example, if you want to have 4 network card, you need to change the instance type. That, I mean, if you are exceeding the limit on the EC2 platform level, for example, I have created 1,000 instances and now I want to increase the number of VMs I want to create or number of network interface I want to create on the EC2 platform level, you have a soft limit and hard limit for which you can go to Amazon Web Services support and you can change it. But if you are asking me whether it is possible to increase the number of network card for the instance type, no, it is not supported. What you have to do is you have to go and convert the convert the instance type. Actually, you have to go to the instance here and go to the details, or let me show you that. You have to stop the instance in order to manage that. So you are asking about the limit of the instance, right? I'm not sure who asked it. Let me check. Can you repeat? Sendil, you want to change, you have to verify whether you can change the number of network interface or increase the number of interface with Amazon support, right?
Yeah, managing IP address. We seen that there is a limit, right?
Correct. You cannot do it. In the same instance type, you cannot do it. If you want to change it, you have to stop the instance and you have to convert the instance type. See, for example, I'll go and stop the instance. Without stopping, if you want to change it, so here the options will be grayed out. So the change instance type will not be available. Okay, I have to go and stop it. And
stop it in the sense outage is breaking, right? Without outage, you cannot make it. Right?
Yeah, without outage, without downtime, you cannot change it. See, even for adding a network card or adding some additional disk, there is a small network glitch that will happen. So some monitoring tools might also capture that. So it is always good to go and get a downtime window at least for 2 minutes or 5 minutes and do the activity. See, whatever you are doing here, everything has to follow the change management procedure. You are adding additional NIC or additional disk. So they will ask whether there is a detailed downtime required. It is not required, but still there are chances that the network might go for rebinding for a second or maybe like 3-4 seconds. Okay, so if a monitoring tool is very aggressive, it will capture as a down thing, but mostly it should not capture, because mostly it is all 1 minute interval or 30-second interval in most of the monitoring tool. But it's always um, go with the non-production hours. Okay, so now I have stopped the instance. Definitely for changing the instance type, yeah, you need to go and stop the instance. Yes. So now I can just go and click on the instance setting, and the change instance type option will be enabled. I can go and click on that, and here whatever the options that I can select or I can convert to will be listed here. Okay, I can just convert it to T3 micro, or if I want to select the higher size, I can go and change it. Okay, let me just select it. For example, as I told you yesterday, within the same instance family, the downtime required is little less. But if you are talking about converting it to different optimized instance, it will change the hardware also. So in that case, the downtime required is little higher. Any questions, like someone?
Do you have any kind of a tentative timeline? How long it may be? 10 minutes, 5 minutes?
See, it depends on your workload, right? See, for example, in general, Amazon recommends to take 15 minutes downtime for the same instance family, and for cross instance family, they asked us to take minimum of 30 minutes to maximum of 1 hour downtime. But it can happen within 5-10 minutes. But the advisable timeline is they are recommending to have little higher. So I can just change it to maybe T3 micro just for sample here. I'll apply it. So currently it is T2 micro, and the type that I'm converting it is to T3 micro. Now I can just go and check this. Instance change is successful. So currently I can go and check the status. I can go and start the instance now. So you have to wait for the message like instance type change successful message, and then you have to initiate the start. So now the system is in pending state. Now you can see all the different IP address that is assigned to the different interfaces.
And the public IP.
Yeah.
This is private one, right?
This is the private one. Public one will change. And I mean, if you want to have it static, then you need to have an elastic IP address. So if you want to have a permanent public IP address across the reboot, then you need to go and create the elastic IP address. I told you, right? You have to go and allocate elastic IP address. This is the permanent public IP address. And I can just go and create it. And here it will go and allocate for that particular region. You have to select the network border. So this is at the region level. Okay, you need not select the data center. You can just select the region and allocate it. Okay, once after it is allocated, it is not used currently. Currently it is allocated, but it's not yet mapped to any system. In order to map it, you have to select that public IP address and go to actions, and you have to associate it. But for a couple of minutes, let's not do that. We'll just wait for the instance to come online. It is currently running. Let's refresh. Okay, it's running currently. You can go and check the status. You have to always wait for the status check. It is still initializing, right? Wait for that to complete. Even though the instance is currently running, the status check has to complete in order to make any other additional changes. Okay, let's wait for a minute. It is already reflecting. It is saying T3 micro and all those things, but still you have to wait for a minute or two. Okay, still the public IP is not yet come. Is there a question? Feel free to ask question. Okay, yeah, you need not wait for my, go ahead.
Stan, one basic question. The elastic IP we selected, that is for both public and private IPs, right?
No, it's a public IP. Elastic
only
is
for
only for
public, right?
public. Yeah.
Public.
So for private, I showed you, right? When you go to the network interfaces, when you go and manage the network card, if you look at the manage IP address screen, if you go and enter your own IP address here, you can have static IP address here. If you want to assign a new IP address static management, it's going into the managed network interface card, and you have to manage it within the card only. So if you want to,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
And
you,
this,
you asked.
I mean, the private IP which we type here, right, this will not be considered as elastic IP, and that will not be charged, right?
Yeah, private IP is never chargeable. Okay, either it is
Okay.
stopped or started. Private IP is always free of cost. Only the public
Yeah.
IP, that too, the permanent public IP, when it is kind of attached to an instance and the instance is stopped, then the elastic IP will be separately charged.
Got
Okay,
it.
because
Yeah.
right. So now, see, if you want to attach that elastic IP to the secondary network interface, you can also do that. See, for example, I can just copy the network IP address here, or I can just go to actions and I can associate this elastic IP to a specific network interface card also. If a particular machine has got multiple network card, I can go and attach it to the secondary network card also. So now the server will have two public and two private IP address. I can choose the I have assigned two IP addresses, right? 100 and 101. It is asking to which IP address I want to bind the public IP. See, for example, if I want to host a website and I want to bind it to 101, and if I want to make it accessible using this public IP, then I have to go and choose that specific private IP address. Okay, so I can just choose this 100 and allow this elastic IP to be reassociated and associate it. You can also go and associate to a particular network interface card. You can either do it from the elastic IP console, or you can go to the network interface console, select the network card, select manage, and you can also enter it here also. You can go and enter it here. Okay, so you can either do it either ways. You can come to this particular manage IP address screen and update the option here, or you can also go to the elastic IP screen and associate from there also. Okay, you can do it from elastic IP to private or private to elastic IP. Both ways are supported. Okay, so any other questions from anyone so far?
Stan, do you have any list that what other things can be done on the fly or which are required at downtime for maybe?
Okay. Yeah, I can see. For example, the change of instance type is the thing that we generally do from an operations team that definitely need a downtime. And otherwise, as I told you, any change that you make, you have to follow change management practice number one, and you have to always do it during the non-production hours, unless there is a business outage or unless there is an urgent thing that is going on, right? For example, the capacity has also reached 90%. You don't have no time to do it. Then you go and create an urgent change and do it immediately. But mostly for your question, yeah. So storage expansion, no downtime. Networking, I say no downtime. There is a small glitch and everything that you change. Okay, so network, again, there is no downtime to have additional network card. And when you change the instance type, definitely you need downtime. That is the only thing for now you need to be aware of. Otherwise, yeah, there is nothing much that needs downtime for now. Okay, for now, let's go and check. Go ahead.
Yes.
For volume,
yes, Sindel.
okay. Yeah. For volume, I've seen OS volume, and I believe there would be a data volume as well, right? Say, let us we have a 30 GB in root volume and 40 GB in data volume. Okay. For the cost reason, customer want to reduce OS and the data. So does it possible online, and can we do it in during the business hours? Any
As a best practice, nothing is recommended to be done in the what you call business hours, and also the size of the volume can only be increased. It cannot be decreased. Okay, that is very important question as well. It is also it is good to understand. Yeah, you cannot change it. Yeah, you cannot decrease it. That's a very good question, in fact. Yeah, go ahead, Velli. I think you were also trying to talk. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, Stan. If I assign the NIC card and if I assign the IP address, if some changes it's not happening, if the machine will hang, then what I need to do? Do I need to restart? Because console access is not available in AWS. That's why I ask if
Yeah,
Anything
I got
happen?
it.
What is the troubleshooting steps?
Yeah, I'll help you with that. I'll show you how to use the serial console, how to use the troubleshooting activity logs, and so on. Yeah, I'll come to that part shortly.
Okay, okay,
And
sir.
yeah. So, any other questions from anyone so far on the current stuff that you have seen? Okay, 1
Just
minute.
one last question,
Yeah.
Stan.
Go ahead.
Can you help me to understand what is the use of this one Windows device name, right? We with the range, what is the use of creating this? Then,
Which one?
if you go to the Excel sheet,
Okay, Excel sheet. Okay.
the row number 31 we mentioned,
Okay.
right?
For
Windows.
identification purpose. For identification purpose, see, for example, if you go inside the volume, you can also see reference for that. So if I go into the system, you can also verify. Okay, it's disconnected. Okay. You can also verify or cross-reference that with your system. So in production, you might have multiple systems, right? So let me just.
Go for restart session.
Yeah, I'll restart it. So 1, 2, 3. Just 1 second. I'm just responding to the chat here. One minute. Okay, so you have the file system reference within the OS. Okay, let me also connect to the Windows. Okay, so this is my Azure VM, I guess. Okay, let me connect to the other one. If you go to device management or the specific device drivers, you will also have some references. So sometimes like when you go and modify something, you need to kind of have an inventory to make sure that you are touching the right network interface. Sometimes you might go and change the wrong one, right? So it's for your identification on the EC2 platform level. Okay, so each of the NIC will have its specific indicator, or this is an ID from the EC2 instance level. Oh, sorry, not the network interface. You are asking about the volume, right? Yeah. See, it is still going on. The one that we did some time back, it is still optimizing and it has just reached 93%. So the downtime that is needed just for increasing from 30 to 40 GB, it's going on for last 30, 40 minutes, right? It's still going on.
Oh my God.
It's in use now. Okay, it's done. Okay, good. So, but yeah, you have to kind of be careful. Okay, so in production, generally, I wouldn't recommend to go and update it without the optimization is complete. Okay, sometimes I've seen people waiting for 4 hours, 5 hours for optimization to complete. Okay, so you have to be very careful. Okay, now it is in use and it's available. Else, you have to wait for the optimization to complete. Yeah, for the other question, yeah, you have the identifier on which one you have attached and the attached instance name. It has the reference on the EC2 level. Okay, this is for identification purpose. And if you're going and making changes in your CMDB, it will also have reference. Yeah.
So do we experience any that the process still complete? I mean, expanding the size of the thing like that.
No, your audio is not very clear for me, Sindel.
Okay, it's audible now.
Yeah, it's audible. Yeah, but there is some clarity issue. Yeah, go ahead. Go and ask your question, please.
Just give me a minute.
Yeah, sure. And maybe while he's reconnecting, yeah, go ahead,
Yes,
Sindel.
now?
Yeah, it's clear, but now I think you have switched on to different mic. Yeah, it's yeah, go ahead with the question. I'll try to answer it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, it's taking some time to complete the process, right? I mean, expanding the size of volume sometime. So during the time, do we experience any slowness or does it impact any business kind of things?
Yeah, there will be definitely
Or
a performance. Yeah, there will be a performance bottleneck. Yes, there are more chances for the performance getting impacted for your application.
okay, okay.
Yeah. See
So
what happens on the back end.
non-business hour.
Yeah, always it's a good practice to do during the lean hours. Or, sorry, the non-business hours, as you said. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stan, one
Okay.
question since I
Yeah.
mean that we make couple of changes, right?
Right.
One change which you made is changing the instance type from T3 to T4, something like that. Those things
Correct.
it says it is clear downtime, right? Is there any
Correct.
indication that certain changes we make there will be a downtime? Will there be a message popped up, something like that? I
Okay,
mean,
so
ignoring the
yeah,
glitches.
it's part of the EC2 documentations only. There is no message that will pop up. Yeah, I
Okay,
know, right?
okay.
Your question is almost the same like Vimal's question, but yeah, you also understood the glitches and those things, right? Yeah, that's good.
I
So
understood that
here,
one.
yeah. So there is one more point that I want to highlight. See, maybe I'll cover the question from Sendil. So ideally on the back end, what happens is you are going and asking for additional 10 GB on your SAN LAN or your storage LAN. On the orchestrator on the back end, it goes and requests the virtual storage, and from the virtual storage, it again goes to the back end physical LAN, and it asks for more capacity. And once the capacity is provisioned, automatically the attachment or the optimization has to happen. Okay, that is the reason like the orchestrator takes its own time, and even the optimization takes its own time to buffer and format and make it available for use actually. So that's the reason it takes more time. And the other question, like whenever you go and create an instance, there are two type of virtualization that are supported. Maybe this is answer for Vimal. I'm not sure if it is still heavily used. So if you're going and using HVM volume virtualization type, then the volume assignment will be mostly what do you call the XVDF or whatever we are seeing, right? But if you're going with another virtualization type, there is a para virtual virtualization type, mainly for the
IO.
para virtualization. Yeah, right. The para virtual, and this is hardware virtual machine. So hardware virtual machine is the most commonly used virtualization type. But if you are using para virtual, then the disk assignments will be like then the disk assignments will be like /dev/ SDA to SDAZ. It will be assigning like this. Okay, and if you are using what you call the HVM category, it will go and assign you mostly XVD concept. Okay, so that itself is different. If you are using the latest device type, it will allow you to use from DB, and it can be from sorry, it can be A to Z again. Okay, and sometimes even in HVM, also in older AMI, if you're using some traditional AMI, it used to follow the same thing. Okay, so don't quote me here, but generally, like this is one difference that I've seen in the HVM and the para virtual VMs. So the old one will be like the SCSI one. Recently, like there has been some format that has been changed, right? The XVDF format or the file system format has changed. So in the latest recent volume types, they have changed it to XVDF to support more volumes to be attached, because like if you're going with the older model, it supports lesser number of volumes that can be attached. So if you want to have more, and again, the instance type has to be looked upon. If your instance type is T2 micro, you have to check how many number of disks can be added or how many number of volumes can be attached. So there is a catch there also. But besides that, if you're talking about the device naming structure or the device naming limitation, then you have to look at the device naming consideration, that how many number of volumes can be named or how much can be attached. So there is one more name that you might see when you are going and using the NVMe type of instances, or if you're going and using a higher instance type, you might also see something like NVMe with numbers like 0 to 26 or something like that. So this is the latest SSD volume. NVMe is non-volatile memory enhanced volume. This is a SSD type that is available in a very higher type instance actually. If you're going and creating some high performance optimized or IO optimized thing, you might also see some /dev/NVMe naming allocations. Okay, it all depends on the block device that you are choosing, and based on the block device driver, if it is some kind of Linux enterprise Linuxes, you might see /dev/xvdf, and if you're going with some older devices, some older AMI, you might see SD assignment. Okay, it all depends on what kind of virtualization type you're choosing. If you're using para virtual, then it uses the older. I'm not sure if it is still there, whether the para virtual is still available. Let me check. Yeah, only in community AMI it is there. You can see the virtualization type is para virtual. There is nothing available on the quick start or the AWS marketplace. Only in community AMI they are still using the older traditional para virtual type. This is the semi virtualization. Okay, but it looks like it is available for mostly Amazon Linux flavors. Okay, not much available for the latest operating system. I can just filter it down. Maybe it might be available for some SUSE or Red Hat. Yeah, only one SUSE Linux 12 it is available. Similarly for Red Hat, yeah, for very old generation like Red Hat 5, 6 also it is available. Good. Okay, so we have still the para virtual support in Amazon Linux platform, but mostly you might be using the hardware virtual machine, which is the which gives you the better performance. Para virtualization is little older technology, but still Amazon supports multiple virtualization format. I'll help you with that. Okay, don't get too much carried away with that for now. But for now, ask questions on whatever we have discussed. These are the important aspects to start with, especially on the EC2 platform level. Any questions
Understood,
on yeah? Any questions on security group, tagging, status check? We'll also discuss auto scaling shortly. Okay, so auto scaling is little advanced, but now let's go and create a image. Okay, so I'll show you how to create your own AMI. Okay, so for example, if I want to, okay, this is getting inactive very frequently. Okay, it's still okay. I'll restart the session. So there is a very high timeout, looks like. We can go and change the SSH timeout also if in case you want to stay connected for a longer time. So time to leave can be changed. Okay, now I want to install any specific package, or I want to install some Apache or HTTPD. I can go and install it. By default, all the systems that you're creating, it has got a public IP, right? And also it will also get attached to internet gateway. By default, you will have a connection to the internet. If you want to download some packages, or if you want to install some packages and associated dependency files, you can also do that. And now I can go and get inside the default location, and maybe I can try to create something within this file. Okay, I can just go and insert the VA editor. I can just type whatever some small welcome to AWS with Stan. I always tend to type Azure. Okay, so I've just installed some packages. I'll also create some directory. Okay, so I'm just doing some settings here. Okay, so I'm creating a directory. I'm creating some web page. I'm going to start the HTTPD service. Okay, currently it is inactive. I'll go to start it. Generally, you go and do it with auto start, right? Systemctl HTTPD on. Sorry. Is it HTTPD daemon, or it's different daemon when you go and control it using systemctl? Any idea? Okay, that's fine.
Systemctl.
Okay, no worries. Okay, I'll check that.
Status
But HTTPD only, right? Anyways, I'll check that. But now I can just go and copy the public IP address, and I can just go and verify whether the website that I install is working. So it is working, right? Welcome to AWS Stan is working. And for example, I have done some folder creation. I have made some changes. I can also make additional security enhancement. Once after I do that, I can go and create an image out of the system. Now I have a server with web package, and I have got some files. I mean, I have created some folders. I can add some additional files also within that. Okay, I can just go inside that folder. I can just say test one, test two. I'm just creating empty files using touch command, and I can also verify that. I can see the empty files here. Okay, now in order to create an image out of the system, I can go to actions and go to images and template, and I can create an image from that VM. Okay, and there are multiple other options that are also available. It is not always required to go and create an image. You can also go and create one more VM with the same configuration and same settings. Okay, httpd.service. Okay, good. So I can also go and okay, one second, what I said. Okay, so when I go and create the image, you have multiple options. Okay, go to actions. There are three options. Okay, you can launch more like this, meaning you can go and create more instances like the one you are currently running. There is an easier way to clone it. It's like clone VM in your virtual VMware, right? You have a clone VM or create VM from the template. You have multiple options there. See, similarly, you can launch more like this. This will go and create instances with same instance type and all the configuration setting, or I can go and create a template out of the system, or I can go and create a image. Now I'm showing you the option to how to create an image and use that image to start with. Okay, let me create an image. I can give it a name. I can say this is Amazon web server image, and for identification purpose I can just give Stan. Okay, and I can also add some additional description to give some meaningful details created by Stan, and this is for Amazon Linux with HTTPD package. You can add as much as description as you want, and also it has got some file contents. Okay, just for understanding purpose, you can add this description optional, but still you can add some meaningful description here. It supports up to 255 characters. When you go and create an image, you have to give an image name, and you also have to give the description. Even though it is optional, it is always better to add some description stating that what kind of roles you have installed, what kind of packages you have added, what kind of features you have added, so that anyone who comes and uses this image, they will get to understand what exactly you have done. And you can also create an image without disturbing the running virtual machine. That option is there, but I'm not going to enable that. And let me also add the tags of the images and the snapshot also. So here you have some limitation. Okay, so you cannot change the image name after it is created. Also, it has got limitation of 127 characters. Similarly, you can add up to 255 characters in your description. Okay, so you can also enable the no reboot option. If in case you are working with the production VM, it is always good to go and check this. If it is a kind of test VM, you can leave that. Okay, by default, a no reboot option is not enabled. By default, it is disabled. Okay, you can also go and delete the volume and termination. See, if it is also going to create volume, right? You can also change the size of your image. On the image, if you want to change the volume size to 12 or 10 or whatever, you can change the size also while creating the image. So in the image, if you want to have the same size as that of the running VM, you can leave this, but you have the option to change it. You have the option to change the OS or root volume size while creating the image. Okay, and you can just go and create an image. Now it is going to create an image out of that running Amazon Linux servers. You can go and verify the status under the AMIs here. Go to image and you can look at the AMI option. It will be getting created now. If you go to the right, the status is currently pending. After maybe 1 or 2 minutes, you'll be able to see the status of the image creation. Okay, so whatever description I've added, it's all listing here. So once after it is created, if I want to create a new VM, I can go and click on this launch instance from the image. You can actually go and select this and create new instances from this option, or else you can go to your regular instances listing and you can click on launch instance. And now you have to select the my AMI option to filter down the AMIs that you have created. Okay, now it is not yet available. Once it is available, it will be listed here. We can just wait for 1 or 2 minutes and I can show you that. So currently the AMIs are getting created. Go ahead. If there is a question, please ask.
Yeah, just when we discuss about right various tool, can you maybe creating a virtual machine with a different tool, right? One you said Terraform, one we can create with our AWS console. What are the other tool you maybe I
Yeah,
didn't note it.
see, no, that's fine. So here, when you go and create the EC2 instances, in general, anything that you do, it can be done using GUI, the portal, okay, the web portal or any graphical portal for that matter. And you can also do it from the command line. You can use Amazon CLI or you can use PowerShell or third-party shell. And you can also do it using the templated method. Templates by default, you can use the native cloud formation, or you can because like at the end it is the language, right? YAML and the JSON are the two languages that are generally used. If you are using the what do you call infrastructure as a code tool for multi-cloud, then people will go and use common tools. Like example, they might use Terraform if they are deploying instances in Amazon Linux, sorry, Amazon Web Services, Azure, GCP, and so on. They might have a common centralized tool to provision the instances using the centralized option. So it's not just Terraform. Any particular tool, any particular infrastructure as a code management tool that supports YAML and JSON can be used. It can be, as you said, Terraform also. Okay, or you can also use GitLab, or you can use some different CI/CD pipeline tools to provision the system along with CloudFormation. CloudFormation is the native AWS infrastructure as a code template, and you can also use some third-party REST APIs or third-party SDKs to create it. Okay, like you can use the GitLab or Terraform or GitHub to integrate, and use some Jenkins to provision the systems also. So we'll come talk about that little later. Always there are 4 options to provision resources in cloud. Okay, it will be GUI, CLI, templated method, and the SDK method. It's irrespective of cloud, AWS or Azure or GCP, you will have always these 4 options. Okay, I'll explain about that little later, about the command line, how to use the command line, PowerShell to deploy, how to use the template, how to use the third-party SDKs. So now we are on day 1, right? So we are just discussing the GUI option, the simplest and the most used option. Yeah, go ahead with your question, Vimal. Yeah.
No, understood, Sean. Okay, I was maybe misassumed the Terraform. I got the clearance now. Thank you.
Yeah. So Terraform is generally used when you have multi-cloud or hybrid cloud setup. If you want to provision systems, you will go and use some third-party tools just for centralized provisioning, or if you want to have build happening for different cloud, you will go and use that.
Okay, got it.
So now, yeah, that's fine. Let's refresh it. So now the image is available. Okay, I can either go and select this and launch instance from the image. Automatically, it will go to the second step. The first step, you have already chosen the AMI, right? It has already picked up this AMI. Either you can do it, or you can go to the EC2 console, go to the instances menu, and under the instance menu, you have the launch instance option. And you can go to the My AMIs and you can select the Stan Amazon Web Server image. I can select this, and I can even change the instance type. I can do whatever I want to do on the other screen. Other screens are modifiable. You can choose, you can change the options here. You can have the option to change the configure instance, add additional storage. You can just add additional tag. Okay, you can use the same existing security group, or you can create some more. But it is always better to limit the number of security group that you create. You can use the same one, existing one. And you can also reuse the existing key pair which you have created today, and acknowledge and launch the instance. So don't create too many key pair, too many security group, unless there is a segregation needed, or unless you need to have separate configuration settings. It is always better to have limited number of security groups and limited number of key pairs in any environment. There is no charges for that, but still, as a best practice, you have to limit the number of security groups and number of to avoid complexity in management. Okay, let the instance get launched. Any questions from anyone on what we have seen now, how to create an image and how to launch a new instance from the image?
Stan, one question. The
Yeah.
image which you created, right? That will not
Yeah.
hold the security groups, right? Only when you try to launch an instance from there, you will be adding the security groups, right? Or the image will, in default, will have the security groups.
No, image is a combination of whatever you have within the operating system. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, within the operating system. So image captures only the OS and the application tools, services, configuration settings or security settings within your operating system. It does not capture anything on the AWS platform level. If you're asking the question for template might capture some of the EC2 virtualization level settings, but not the image. Image is capturing the operating system. It's a golden image, right? We call it as gold image or gold disk in your traditional terms. Okay, so it goes and creates the image. And what is the purpose of the image is to reduce the time that is needed to reconfigure the system. See, for example, if you want to create a new web server, to reduce the time you are spending on hardening it, the time you are spending in installing the tools and settings, this image can help to reduce the time you take to deploy and configure. Okay, it does not take anything from the AWS platform level. Yeah, I'll just mute the line. Okay, so let's wait for a minute. There are a couple of options. Okay, so you can either share the image. There is another question in the chat. I think they are asking, can I use the image for different region? By default, no. You cannot use the image in different region. If you want to use the image in another region, for example, I have created the image currently in um, currently in North Virginia. I have to select the image and I have to go to the actions and I have to copy the image to the secondary location. Click on the copy AMI and you have to select the destination region that you want to copy. For example, if I want to copy it to Mumbai, I have to select Mumbai and copy the AMI. After you copy the AMI to that specific region, you can use that AMI to create the VM. Clear? Narayanan, is it okay? Yeah, yes, go ahead, Kanan. Yeah.
Yep. So while creating image, we did not enable that no reboot option, right? So that it means our instance rebooted now.
Yeah, no. If it needs reboot, for example, if it want to do some freezing, or if you want to do some kind of what do you call, if it want to do queuing, okay, it might go and freeze the system, or it will go and reboot the system. If the system is not blocking blocking the image creation, it will not go and disturb it. There are cases where the system might have to go and take over the OS level permissions to confirm the image creation. Sometimes it might throw error or it might wait for a longer time. So if they will try to reboot and fix the issues automatically. Right. So yeah. So Narayanan, if
Not
you are
always going to
copying,
reboot it.
yeah, it is not always. Yeah. So if you are copying the AMI from one location to another region, the cost is involved. There is a data transfer from one region to another region. If you are doing it for lab environment, you don't have to do it. But the advantage of AMIs is like you are going to reduce the time. See, for example, I have a web server in US. I want to have a exact same web server with same configuration in same settings in Mumbai. It's very easy, right? You can just click that, copy the AMI and launch an instance in another region. It takes very few minutes. Like if you're thinking about the expansion of data center in one region to another region, you have to go and start from the scratch. Okay, so that's the beauty of cloud, right? You can have the same exact server in another location within a few minutes. Even you can migrate it. Okay, you have tools to replicate and migrate and do online options also to reduce the downtime. If you're taking this AMI method or image method, there is a time, right? You have to take an image, you have to copy the image, and you have to create a new VM. But if you want to migrate it online from one location to another location, you have migration tools to facilitate that with minimal downtime. But definitely downtime is needed, but you can reduce the amount of time that is needed to migrate one VM from another or one region to another region. Okay, but you have the option. You have, but you cannot use the image that is created in one region to create an instance in another region. So you have to copy the AMI and then you have to use it. So AMI is tied to a region, and if you want to use the same AMI, copy the AMI to the new region or the destination region, and use that destination region to use that AMI. Okay, so see the console, whatever we are here, whatever we are seeing the dashboard, it is limited to that specific region. So if I go to Mumbai or another region, everything will be empty. Okay, so for example, I'm just looking at Mumbai region. If I go and look at the EC2 dashboard for Mumbai, currently it will not have any instances, it will not have any AMIs. Only if I copy the AMI, it will be populated here. Only if the listing is here, I can select it and launch an instance in Mumbai region. Otherwise, it will not be available. And there are some good benefits options available. There are some recycle bin and other options. I'll talk about that little later. But yeah, I'll go. I mean, there is one another interesting view called EC2 Global View. Few years back, there is a lot of challenges, like people coming from Azure or GCP background. They will say in Azure, I can see everything in one single console. In AWS, that option is not there. All those complaints will be raised earlier. But now you can have a global view. You can see like how many VPCs are created in different region, how many volumes are there, so that you can also reduce any unwanted or some people will go and create in a different region and they might miss to delete that particular volume or instance or whatever. Okay, so that time you might have to pay for those instances if you're running it for a longer time. Now you can see that only 3 instances are there. That too, it is on the only in the US region, East region. Okay, you have a global search, global view for all the resources. This was recently added a couple of years back. So AWS is there in the market for last 17 years, right? So it was not available earlier, the global view. Now they have also given you an option to do a global search and also to look at the different regions, different instances that are running, different VPCs and all those things. You can also go and add additional columns. If you want to have additional view, you can also add it. Okay, so as of now, you can see only US East has got 3 instances and 4 volumes, and 15 security group is there. Okay, by default, you will have no security groups. Okay, you have to go and create it. So anyways, these are all some good options to explore. Okay, quick time. Oh, okay, yeah, it's time to take a break. But again, I'm also having some commitment now. Maybe we will continue the EC2 class during next Saturday. We'll call it a break for the day, and we'll continue to look at the other options, like how to manage lifecycle management, snapshot. The other options will be continue to discuss on next Saturday. So next Saturday we are not going to start networking. We'll complete whatever is left over, and then we'll start with networking. Okay, any questions before we call it a day?
Satya here.
Yeah.
One
Yes,
thought,
Satya.
you have changed some that instance type now. Actually, what we did on that? I missed that.
Okay, I'll show you that. So we went ahead and stopped the VM and we selected the VM and we went to actions. We went on to instance setting and we selected the change instance type in order to change from T2 micro to T3 micro.
Okay, you
Okay, there
mean
are
that
some
you're increasing the CPU count. That's what is it?
correct. So if you look at the instance type here, the current T2 micro, I'll show you that quickly. Okay, so here, if I go and check the T2 micro one, the T2 micro one will support only one CPU and 1 GB memory and some kind of combination. But the T3 micro will support higher configuration. See, currently it is supporting 1 CPU, 1 GB memory, and so on. And the price for that is 0.0116 USD per hour. And I've changed it to T3 micro now. So T3 micro provides additional capacity in terms of CPU, and also it adds up charges to you. It also supports 5 gigabyte speed on the network. See, for example, for certain reason, you might have to go and change it. If I need more networking speed, or if I need additional network interface, or if I need more compute cores, okay, I can go and change it. So you can go and check how many threads are supported, how many, what is the current generation, whether it is the current generation VM or all those things. I'll help you understand little more. But for now, to answer your question, yeah, I have increased the number of CPUs on that VM. That is the major thing that has changed. Compared to T2 micro, it has got higher capacity. You can also compare it like this. Okay, I can just go and see that. See the T3 micro has got up to 5 GB, and the T2 micro, it all depends. It can support 1 GB or it can even support lesser. So if it doesn't give you any guarantee on the performance of the network, it is saying low to moderate. But if you want to have up to 5 GB speed, then you have to go to this particular T3 micro. If you scroll down, you also get 10 GB, 25 GB speed also. Accelerated networking also is available. If you are looking for 25 GB speed for some of your instances, you have to go and choose that specific instance category. For example, T2.2x large or T3 nano, it supports up to 5, okay, not this one. So you can go and choose something which is higher. For example, it's compute optimized, it supports up to 10 GB speed. Okay, even though the CPU is just 2, it supports up to 10 gigabyte speed. So you can go and change the instance based on your business application requirement. If it needs more CPU, memory, or network performance, you can go and convert that.
Okay, got it. Thanks, sir.
Yeah. So thank you for the time check, Vimal. I thought of just closing down the session. That's why I did not give the break at 8 o'clock. Otherwise, I generally give it at 8. Okay, so any other questions before we close for the day? We will continue to discuss. There are a few more things that we need to discuss on EC2. We are not done yet with the compute. Okay, we have a lot of more items to discuss. Okay,
Yes,
I'll
sir.
upload the session. Yeah, go ahead.
One question is, if AMI we have the multiple accounts, if we have the multiple accounts, shall we copy the one account to another account? Is it chargeable or not? I just want to
Okay, so
confirm.
there are 3 options. There are something like public permission and explicit permission, and there is one more called implicit permission. So there are some 3 launch permission option for your AMIs. If I go and change it, if I give public access, the owner can grant launch permission to all AWS account. You can use it across the AWS account. And if I'm giving explicit permission, it is entitled to only specific AWS account or specific AWS organization or specific OU. Okay, there is one more option called implicit. You can have only launch permission for the owner only. Okay, and it is limited to AWS account. I'll show you that. Maybe I can show you where exactly the option is, but I'll explain it a little more later. So there are some permissions visibility here. Currently it is private. You can just go to the actions and you can go and edit the AMI permission. If you change it to public, or if you want to give some specific permission to some specific account, you can also give that. Okay, you can also give it to organization level or OU level or to some specific AWS account. You can add the account ID, or you can select public. Public will give access to all AWS users and all AWS account. It is wide open. You have the option to change the permission. This is called launch permission.
Okay, Stan. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Any other question from anyone? I know that there will be a lot of questions. You guys can practice. Okay, when you come back with more questions. Okay, so that we can discuss. So it should be an interactive session. Okay, so I am seeing only few people are asking, but that too, all the questions are very good questions. Okay, so no question is dumb question, right? So go and ask it. Okay, so that you can understand more. Okay, guys, thank you for joining. Okay, so practice by creating an AWS account. Without practice, you cannot go to the associate level. But without practice, you can appear for fundamentals level or foundation level by understanding the terminology, by understanding the purpose of the product or the resource. You can go and appear for fundamental exam. But if you are appearing for associate level exam, you need to have implementation experience. You need to have hands-on experience, or especially for sysops administrator associate. So practice. Okay, so we are just discussing only one small topic every weekend. Now we are discussing only EC2. And after you look at after 3 or 4 weeks, you will have a lot of things to practice. So if you are just practicing this week, just practice only EC2. You have got 5 days to just practice EC2. Just go and spend like 30 minutes to 1 hour every day, so that you can feel like that you are able to grasp more things. So practice makes you perfect. Okay, so spend some time this week, during the week, whenever you get some time, practice by creating EC2, launch it, configure it, change it, and try to do some troubleshooting. You'll get a lot of questions and you can come and get it clarified next weekend. Okay, thank you everyone. Good night, and I'll confirm when the recording is available. Okay, I'll stop the